appreciate your presence. My question to you is, what solutions/action items do you offer to the next generation that we must take advantage of?
Very good. And then they'll answer those three.
Hi, my name is Tamara Buckner. Thank you so much for being here. I wanted to ask if you believe that true revolution is possible for Black Americans without violence, and do you believe that there is space for a new Black militant movement in the United States?
It might be good that there's a Black woman who's the chief of police. I don't know what impact that's actually going to have, but I think it's important for us also to think structurally and to recognize that racism is deeply embedded in the very structure of policing. Well, this young Black woman was attacked by a Black policeman, so it can't be racism. Say what? I think we've begun to recognize that racism is not simply about attitudes, and it's not primarily about attitudes. It's about ongoing structures and apparatuses in which racism is so deeply and historically embedded that it matters little what individuals are playing the role. Gina mentioned that we were just both in South Africa. Some years ago, in the aftermath of the downfall of apartheid, there was an attack on miners, Black miners, Americana miners. Some of you may have heard about this. Well, okay, the miners were Black. The police who attacked them were Black. The local police commissioner was a Black woman. The national police commissioner was a Black woman. But nonetheless, there was horrendous violence and brutality that reflected the violence and brutality of the racism of the apartheid era.
Right.
So we have to be aware of simply wanting to change the actors,
Right.
but leaving the structures themselves intact. What was the question here? Action items. Action items. Okay. Action items. I don't know whether it's that helpful to talk about action items because I think there is so much that we have to do, that we have to be willing to embrace an agenda that is very broad, a very capacious agenda that allows us to do the specific work that we're doing while keeping in mind that there is important work to do in other spheres. For example, for people who have not been involved in trans struggles, you might think, well, that concerns a relatively small minority of people. How is that going to help change the world? The same kind of argument was often made about, well, women are only 7 or 8% of the incarcerated population. Doesn't that mean that the whole struggle against incarceration is a male phenomenon? But feminism helps us. When I say feminism, I'm not talking about Hillary Clinton's feminism. I'm talking about anti-racist feminism, anti-capitalist feminism, transnational feminism. And I say feminism allows us to recognize how oftentimes issues that appear to be relatively small can have a massive transformative effect. And we began to realize this in the anti-prison movement when trans prisoners began to complain about the way they were treated in prison. And once we began to take on the issue, we realized, oh my God, this gives us an entirely different perspective on the entire prison industrial complex. And it allows us to recognize how ideological work happens, how it is that most of us in the world were led to believe that there were only two genders. Because they're men's prisons and they're women's prisons, right? And so you see that helps to sustain the notion of the binary character of gender, not only with respect to prisoners, but in the larger society. So that is extremely important work. And I can't think of a single issue that someone might raise now in which I would say, oh no, that's not an important item on our agenda. We have to create a capacious agenda and recognize the ways in which we are all interconnected. Intersectionality, the feminist notion of intersectionality is important because it emphasizes interconnections, interrelationalities. We do not have to construct hierarchical agendas. We do not have to say that this is more important than that. We say that everything is important, and it is especially important now to recognize the rise of women. And when I use the category women, I'm thinking very broadly. I'm including trans women as well. So that when, I see it's zero now, so I'll save that for the next time, so that Gina will have the opportunity.
So I won't take all, there's too much. So I just want to say a couple of things to follow on. Because the action item thing, I know where that comes from, and it's important, and I want you to do what you believe is urgent. The thing that I feel is hard now is that we feel we have to do everything. So it's very hard to focus. It's like that problem of multitasking. What I think, thinking about the King era at a different time, where organization was different, where the Communist Party had a role, we never talk about that when we talk about it, where there was actually a party organizing globally to get people to think and actually had a methodology for getting people organized and working on things. We don't have that anymore. We also live in what my students taught me to call, cancel culture, which I'm really worried about, because when one person's working on one thing and then someone else chimes in, it's very, very competitive, and then people get afraid to do the work they really need to do. So I'm not answering your question, but what I am saying is that there are so many things. We've mentioned climate, we mentioned trans issues, we mentioned immigration, we mentioned so many things. But what I think is really required is figuring out how to be respectful, coordinated, and not believe that each of us individually can achieve those things.
Awesome.
So that I think is really hard now, to be able to be satisfied with the work you're doing such that you can continue to do it, and where you can respect the people around you doing it, and where you can then figure out how to build effective coalitions with other people doing other work that is necessary to the work you do, but it's not the same. Because when we try to just all do the same thing, we're just spinning our wheels. And I just feel like in this political moment, we've got to be more generous to each other, and that's part of the voting thing. And then also figure out, well, how are we leaderful, but also how are we going to be patient that maybe we won't each individually be recognized for the things we're doing. I'm sorry to say that I think one of the things that's hindering us is that too often people want credit very early for doing things. And the truth is we've lost many more people than we could bring up here on this stage.
Facts.
It's not good news, and I'm not trying to, be depressing, but I want to say that that is the nature of struggle. So knowing that it's just the daily doing it, wherever you can, whatever you can, and that is all important, is actually also, back to self-care, I think important for self-care. So make your action items the ones that you can accomplish.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
I was just thinking about a conversation I had with Nina Simone many years ago.
Oh, she can pull that out.
When she came to visit me when I was in jail, and she was concerned that she did not know enough. And as a matter of fact, she saw, I had a lot of books in my cell, and she was able to come into the cell, so she brought me a balloon, which I kept for the rest of my imprisonment. But she said she was concerned because she did not feel that she knew enough. And I said to her, your music does more to persuade people to struggle than any book will ever do. So it wasn't a question of saying what is more important than the other. Everything is important. And everybody's contribution is important.
Thank you. Really separate.